Hello Evergreen fans and welcome back to Evergreen Month. Today we'll be covering Casino Royale. Now if you aren't familiar, Casino Royale is a James Bond film. It's actually the first James Bond novel and was the first one to be made for the Daniel Craig series, which rebooted the franchise because it kind of apparently went crazy shortly after the last Pierce Brosnan film. So, my knowledge of the James Bond franchise is severely limited to this one film only and a couple of things from Skyfall, and that's it. I know the Vesper is a part of Quantum of Solace. They discussed her, that's about it. That's the extent of Evergreen in that film, and that's it, really. That's all I know. I'm not a huge Bond fan. I've never seen any before, and I haven't seen any yet. My brother's trying to get me to watch Skyfall, and I've heard really good things about Skyfall, but he hasn't succeeded quite yet. So yes, this is the only James Bond film I've ever seen, and long story short, it's a great film, you should go watch it. End of review. But if you're still here, let's have a little discussion about the film, because I think there are some interesting points we can discuss amongst one another. Let us begin. So, the introduction for this movie is very, very, very interesting. I'm not really sure why they set it in black and white, but it catches your attention. It really does set up early on in the film that this is a movie that's going to constantly surprise you with what it can do and what it wants to do and all that great stuff. It's probably what people love about James Bond as a whole, but it's a very interesting sequence in black and white. Now, of course, the song as well is great. I love the song. I play it every few months. I'm like, you know what, I need to listen to this song 18 times, and that'll be done. I've listened to the other ones that I'm not super fond. I don't like Quantum of Solace at all. Skyfall's is pretty good, and Writing on the Wall, expect it's a mixed bag. I don't know if that should have been a James Bond song, but on its own I like it. But yeah, this is my favorite of the 4 songs I've listened to. I've listened to For Yours I Am only because I'm a huge Janet Easton fan, and Goldfinger and Diamonds Are Forever. And I like those. They're all pretty good. But this song is great, and I think it really sets up that this is going to be a very action-packed, very interesting film. It sets up the card game, it sets up the Bond girl, which you can catch very briefly in the Queen card. I don't know if I'll be able to find a picture because it's so brief, but you can see Vesper there. And it just sets up the movie, and it's really, really, really good. Alright, I just want to we'll go over the cast now, because they're all pretty great. There's nothing bad about them. I mean, the standouts, of course, are the 4 main players. Mathis, I guess you could say as well, but I don't know him. I don't know the actor's name, but yeah, he's pretty good. He's just not in it that much. So, obviously we have Eva Green. She's a huge, she stands out so well in this film, and it's not unsurprising that a lot of studios offered her a bunch of roles shortly after, like, oh, you got talent and people will want to see you more. And I don't know if that's true for every Bond girl. I think it is to an extent. Most of them have a lot of good roles or get offered a lot of roles shortly after. Not 100% sure on that. Probably not all of them, but I know, I think Halle Berry did, and then Terry Hatcher, yes, that's her name, did, because she's still going strong to this day. So, also, I want to mention that her performance in the movie is very, very mature. It's interesting to go from The Dreamers to this, and it seems, and even King of Heaven, she seems to learn slowly more and more about herself and her surroundings. So it just seems to be a journey for her, and she's very, very mature in this role. Like, this is Eva Green we know now, and it's the Eva Green of Kingdom Heaven and Dreamers is a very different person than what we have now. Maybe she's more real, more genuine, and this is more the person she's become for the public. Who knows? Who knows? But she's very, very mature in this movie, and it's great. Of course, Daniel Craig is great as James Bond. Yeah, that's about it. He has a very dry sense of humor. I don't think many actors would be able to pull that off in Bond. He's threatening. He's genuinely a threatening guy. To just, if you had him staring across at you from a room, you'd probably be out of that situation. I don't know. Sean Connery, I don't think I would be. Roger Moore, probably not. Pierce Brosnan, probably, maybe. But Daniel Craig for sure. He just has this very intense look. And then he has the physique to match up Bond, and he just does everything in this movie. I think he did almost all of his stunts, if not all of them. I don't really see, maybe the car chase would be the only one. Actually, yeah, that probably would be the only one that wouldn't be him directly. But he is great. You should all see him. I did see him in Tomb Raider, which was pretty funny. Very, very different than James Bond, his character. Of course, we have Judi Dench. Oh, great. She's... every scene she's in, I don't want to say she steals it, but there's a reason why she's a British icon, and this movie just demonstrates that further. If you weren't familiar, I know some stuff, guys. She was M for, I think, the first Pierce Brosnan film. I think it was GoldenEye, and then she's been since. If you're a James Bond fan, please correct me, because I could be horribly wrong. So she's done it for quite a while, and then, of course, she finished at Spectre. Not Spectre, Skyfall. And, of course, Matt Mickelson. I know him mostly from Hannibal, I think most of us do, but he really does stand out as a villain, and that's probably why a lot of people didn't like Quantum of Solace as villain, because you had the great Matt Mickelson as the villain, first and foremost. He's a very strong actor as well. They all stand out. They're all the type of actors and actresses to steal scenes from not steal scenes from people, but to take over a scene. You're always looking forward to them being on the next scene, because you just love them so much. They're so good. Okay, so the action scenes in this movie are very, very, very raw. My brother said this was due to the Bourne series coming out shortly, and they had kind of similar, very realistic, very raw action sequences, but it also could be the fact that the last James Bond film before Casino Royale was very, like, over the top in its action and very, like, completely out there. So that's probably why they wanted to rein it in a bit more and make it more realistic, and so it could appeal to more people, because before you could say James Bond was not, I don't want to say niche, because it's mainstream and people really, really like it. But I think Casino Royale is a movie for people who might not like the classic James Bond film, but will probably like this one. That's how I kind of feel about it. That's why I probably like it as much as I do. But yeah, it's a very raw, and it's very sloppy, I have to say. And I think they also did that on purpose to show James Bond's progression. I don't know how he's progressed to Spectre, but in this film, at least, he's very sloppy. He's like, there's one scene where this guy jumps over through a window, and then you just have James Bond breaking through the wall. So it's very, and then a lot of the jumping, he kind of slips and fumbles, so it would be something you would have to get used to, obviously, muscle memory and such, to be good at that. So it's very good to show that, and it allows for him to grow as a character over the next few movies, and I think he does. I mean, I've never heard anyone say he doesn't. But, very good, very good, very good. The movie, action films are probably are films that need to be the most well shot and the most well edited. And fortunately enough, this film is both of those. Quantum of Solace, I heard, I've seen it some parts, is really choppy in its editing. I don't know how it is for its camera work or anything else, but it's really, really bad in the editing department. So this film, I think, again, works because it has great camera work and it has great editing and such a great crew behind it to make this film as great as it was. Also, another thing I really liked about this movie, there's so much going on. It's not a very linear progression. It's more, he has this one piece of information at the beginning. I think it was ellipsis or something. Ellipsis Bahama. It was something to that extent. It was started there, and then it becomes ellipsis eventually, and then it just kind of branches off. So it isn't a linear path at all. I don't know if the later films, or the later ones, are as linear, or more linear than this film, but you go to so many locations, but they all are connected by this one little thing. And the first time I saw the film, I don't think I liked that. I don't know why I didn't, but that I didn't have a linear path, but I think it works better and more as an engrossing film to constantly change location, so your audience is never bored, and like I said, you're constantly surprising them. So I think the movie is great in this, that it can make this one little point and then allow you to explore to so many other directions, whereas lesser action films would have one point and just go on. Or lesser, I don't want to say lesser, or action films that wouldn't appeal to someone like me. On the note, this is more an action film than anything else, but it has enough drama and heart to validate it for almost anyone to watch. If you love romances, you'll like, I don't know if you'll like this movie, but you'll probably like the romance between Bond and Vesper. If you like action films, obviously this is going to be the film for you. If you like dramas, it's a bit iffy, but there's enough dramatic elements to go on. So it's basically, Casino Royale is the every man's Bond, I want to say. Like, everyone can watch it, everyone can enjoy it, and that's what's so great about it. Also, I noticed in this movie there's kind of a sadness to Bond, in the sense that he's just so cold, and it just makes you wonder again what happened to him, what made him so cold and distant from literally everyone, and it's so sad. I think it brings another layer that Daniel Craig does, is he gives this really sad layer to James Bond as a character, and there has to be a reason for all this coldness and sadness, and Vesper's the one who brings out the warmth in him, but we all know how that ends. I also like, James Bond in this film is so clever. Like, they're just little things, or how he manipulates people to get what he wants. It's just genius. I mean, that's probably a huge appeal of Bond, but it's so well done. Thank you, Daniel Craig. And also, Daniel Craig, again, I think I mentioned this already, but he has a very, very deadpan sense of humor, which works so well for Bond. Let's be honest. I don't see anyone else being able to have such a deadpan humor and get away with it. It's a movie that you get lost in. It really is. Like, we were sitting down, my brother and I, because it split up into 2 days because we started it quite late the first day, and so we just postponed it to the next day. But an hour and 20 minutes that we're up, and I was like, well, what time is it? And then it was close to 11, and it's like, wow, this is a movie you just sit down and get lost in. It's never boring, and you never get distracted. It just continues on. And I mean, even you could say the ending, because they beat the villain, or what is supposed to be the villain, at, not the midway point, but there's a good chunk through the film, and then there's, I think, 20 minutes left. In most movies, that would be, oh my god, can't this movie just end already? But for this movie, it has to happen, because that's how the story is being told, so it works so well, and just because that's how the film is, it's not disjointed, but there's so much going on that a bit more at the end doesn't seem misplaced, whereas in a linear film, that would happen. So, excellent writing on that behalf, and it's a movie you really get lost into. One of the highlight scenes I had to say would be the body museum with the knife fight. That was so well done. Oh man. This movie, its action is great. I mean, I'm not a huge action fan. A lot of them don't appeal to me, but this one for sure does. The set design in this film, I don't think I have to say, but it's great. I mean, especially the final battle, or the climax of the movie, that one's so good, and the Casino Royale itself is very interesting and very appealing. The whole movie is that way. It's great. It's great. Eva Green, okay, so she makes her entrance about an hour into the film. Very well done, of course, and for this reason, I don't know why, it sounds stupid, and it might be a little creepy or crazy on my part, but whenever this intro scene, it always makes me smile, and I don't know why it does. Maybe it's just the charisma and the chemistry between the two that it does, that I get so involved, but I just smile every time that intro goes on. And I also want to say the train scene was great for setting up the chemistry and the backstories for both the characters, in the sense that, because they both analyze each other, and I mean, obviously it's not 100%, there's no guarantee that it's 100% accurate for either person when analyzing the other, but it gives us a way to have so much backstory without being too exponential, and it gives it so well, it sticks in your mind, and you're not like, it goes fast enough that you're not sitting there like, oh, is this gonna end again? This is back to the writing and getting lost in the movie. One of the parts I love, though, about their romance, and it really adds to the chemistry, is their wordplay with each other and how they just can go off on each other. It's very much, it was Ted Danson who said this for the show Cheers, that if you go into the rink, it seems that Eva Green, get ready, if you were to, let's say, go for a punch, she'll punch you back, and it's very much like that. If he says anything negative to her, she'll fire back, or he does the same, or vice versa, and that is such a fun, not punching each other, but that's such a great chemistry, and it works so well to have someone that's willing to throw the punches against you, and not be frail or weak, but they're so good for each other, and it works so well. Also, fun fact, not fun for some people, but originally Eva Green had passed on this film because she didn't want to be a Bond girl. And if you don't know, Bond girls usually have a reputation for just being kind of the girlfriend and the one who dies at the end of the movie. But this one, if I were to read, I wouldn't be offered a Bond girl, but this is such a great script that it kind of surprised me that she passed on it just face value alone, but when she read the script, she's like, man, this is really good, and it really is. She's not, in the end, she does kind of become that girlfriend archetype, but up until that point, she's a fighter, and she is great. Okay, so the poker game, obviously, is the main kind of battle of the film, I'll say loosely, but it sounds really silly, I'm sure, but the poker game is so intense, and you'd think for a poker game it wouldn't be intense, or it shouldn't be intense because it's poker. But oh man, they do it so well that it's, because all the action I notice in this movie is in a very, very tight environment. It always is in a tight environment. At the beginning, at the crane, I mean, that one was a bit more open, but it was still, it was a lot of tight corridors. The museum was a very tight encounter. The stairway, which we'll get back to in the highlights, or the memorable scenes for me. And, the end is in a tight building again, so a lot of it's in tight spaces. So when the poker battle happens in a tight space, it's the same tension and the same feeling you have from those other scenes that transfers to this one, and it's a very tense and enjoyable experience. So there's a lot of it's so well done also that I don't understand exactly how they play this game. Eventually, once I've seen this movie so many times, I'll catch it eventually. But they do it so well that you don't have to know, and it's just as intense, and it's just as engrossing. Whereas a lesser film, this would be very boring for you, the poker game. It would just, you'd be like, what's going on? Why am I doing this to myself? But it's just so well done. It really is. I also noticed Matt Mikkelsen, Le Chiffre, or Le Chiffre, I'm not sure, characters said it both ways in the movie, but he's kind of a loser in this movie, I have to say. He's the pawn of everyone else in this movie. He's not really his own guy, and like, he gets killed at the end. And, yeah, he's kind of a loser in this movie. He doesn't have anything going for him, really. I'll get to the highlight scenes at the end. Oh, maybe not. Okay, the stairway fight scene, I love that scene. I really, it's just so, again, tight space, intense, with her running down the stairs, and, like, she can never outrun what's going on, and she can never, and he will always catch up to her. Or, sorry, when they're fighting, he's always getting thrown, or someone's getting thrown over, and it's always right beside her, so she's always in immediate danger. But she isn't, because she's willing to fight, and at the end, when she gets the gun away from the guy, it's very, very good, and it shows, it's just a great scene. I love it. It's so intense. And the shower scene, obviously, if you're an Evergreen fan, you know about this scene. It's just so well done, and it's such a sad scene, and it shows, it's not, I mean, it's sad, but it shows a lot of character from them both. That Vesper, for all her tough exterior, she is still just, one of us. She's not used to seeing people die. She's not used to, more or less, assisting in someone being murdered. And so for a lot of us, that'd be pretty destructive, and it wouldn't be a great experience, and it also shows emotional and less guarded self with her in that shower. So it's just a great scene for them both, and it gives them both so much a character. Oh, the CPR scene where Vesper saves him. Oh, again, a very intense, again, a small area where Le Chiffre has poisoned him, and then he's trying to save himself, but he can't, or he passes out, or his heart stops before he can. So we have Vesper who comes in. She saves him quite a bit in this movie. Again, probably why so many people like her, but she comes in and she saves Bond, and that's another great scene to show, to show off. I remember, it's always a scene I remember. These are always the scenes, the memorable and the scenes I remember. The chase scene, the car chase, when he's going after Vesper, or Le Chiffre who stole it, who has taken Vesper at that point, and the fact that they put Vesper on the road and Bond has to veer off to save her life, again, shows, it's just it's so well done, and it's such a great action scene, and it gets you pumped and excited, and it's great. The torture scene also, oh man, that would not be a great experience for most of us. Wouldn't even want to know what pain it would be to have, and that's, so it's a great scene between Matt Mikkelsen and Daniel Craig. They just work off each other really well as a villain and protagonist, or villain and hero. It's very, very good. Very, very, very good. And of course the climax. It's so great. It's such a great scene to have that be in such a tight space and the building's collapsing and it's great. But of course, the part, if you've seen the movie, you know it's great. But we have to talk about Vesper's inevitable death. So, if you've ever, this movie, So in the end, Vesper gets locked in this elevator in the building. Of course, if you know this, and you know she twists the door closed and she plummets down and she drowns and all that terrible stuff. So it's such a well done and sad scene because of all the scenes building up to it, like when they finally admit their love for one another, and so there's so much building up to it, and we believe that they are truly in love. So for him, Bond, who has just resigned, for him who's taken off his armor for Vesper, to then watch the person he removed all that for, to just die on him, is pretty heartbreaking, and it's so well done and it's so sad. And Vesper's theme, that plays there is just so perfect. So the score is great. I guess I kind of touched on that for the intro. It's such a sad and well done scene that you believe that he really is broken up about it, and we see part of Bond die that day. As we can, if you've seen Bond, you know, in Consoles, he's still on it, and then she shows up in the intro for Spectre. So, yeah, very well done. It's very, very sad. It makes me sad every single time. I've never cried at it, but it's heartbreaking, more or less. It very much is heartbreaking. So those are the main things I want to say about the movie. Basically, if I've said it about 100 million times already, this movie is great, everyone should watch it. There's no excuse not to. It is something for everyone in this movie. It's a great film. I do have some questions, though, that I was watching the movie and I did ask my family about, so I want to know what you guys have to say. Number 1. At the hospital scene, Vesper kind of does a 180, and Bond notices this and says, you know, what's going on? And she says, oh, I'm a complicated woman, or something to that effect. And then she acts very lovey-dovey, but as we know, if you've watched the film, that she wants to get the money from him. So that brings me to the point of, do you think she actually loved him at this point? Or do you think she was manipulating him and then fell in love with him? Do you think she always loved him after the car chase? Or do you think he was being manipulated by her, but in the end, she fell in love with him? I don't know. I kind of think, based on how they set it up, that she plays him at first, but then she actually falls in love with him. But you could also make the argument that he saved her life at this point quite a few times, that she would fall in love with him. So I'm interested to see what you guys think. Do you think he was being manipulated, and then she fell in love, or do you think she was in love all along? Why do you think Vesper locked the elevator door? Because she does, to prevent Bond from rescuing her as easily. Do you think, was it a way for her to save him? You know, as the building was collapsing, he could have drowned if he had taken too much time to save her. Or do you think it was her way of redeeming herself for betraying his trust and his love, that she felt she needed to die? I got both answers. I'm kind of leaning more to the side that she wanted to save Bond at first. And then my brother said that she did it for her own redemption, to save herself, or she felt she needed to die for her mistakes. Then my mother pointed out, what if it was both? And that was very interesting to me, that it could be redemption for her, but it also could be her trying to save Bond. So for her, she knows she's gonna die, but if she can save Bond, I mean, Em mentions that she went there hoping she would live, but she probably knew she was going to die. It was better delivered than I just did it, but she says something to that effect. So for it to be both, I think that would be very, very, even more heartbreaking. So I want to know what you guys think. Do you think she did it for redemption? Do you think she did it to try and save Bond? Or do you think she did it for both? Very curious to see what you guys have to say. Also at the end, I forgot to mention this, very, very sad. So at the very end, Bond goes through her belongings and he sees, I didn't notice this until now, that he sees a seashell. And most people might be like, oh, whatever, but that's from the beach where they admit their love for each other. Even more heartbreaking. And basically, we have Vesper to thank for the franchise of Daniel Craig, because she leads him, she's the bad guy at the very end. So, thank you, Vesper. Thank you, Eva Green. Thank you, especially for you, for watching this discussion not rant. I wish I was ranting. discussion of Casino Royale. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you come back for more Eva Green Month. Next time we'll be covering the movie I'm not sure about still, The Golden Compass. I look forward to seeing you guys then. I wish you the best of days, and farewell for now.